Quality Forge would like to introduce you to the next speaker of the event, Mikko Paloheimo. Mikko is a QA and chapter lead for the OP Financial Group. With over 2 decades of QA and testing experience, much of Mikko's current work has been around organizational level QA culture and community, competence development, and training. Mikko's passion for QA extends beyond his day job, as he is also one of the organizers of the highly successful Finnish testing meetup. In a nutshell, Mikko lives and breathes QA. Today, he will be talking about quality assurance, compliance, and success. Is it possible? An overview to a complete set of quality assurance, testing, regulatory compliance, and importance of vibrant QA community in the finance industry. A case study by OP Financial Group.
So we're really lucky to have Mikko with us today. It's 2 decades of experience, and he really does live and breathe QA. He has his normal work as a compliance lead, but he's organizing stuff. He's sort of nurturing the next generation of QA testers. He puts his life energy into this.
I mean, yeah, not only 2 decades of QA experience, but his dedication to building a QA community. It's like fascinating, and it's very interesting to hear maybe some tips and tricks we can use here at TestDevLab.
It's also really useful because this is someone who in the finance industry has to be on the cutting edge of what's new in QA and testing, because he's ensuring not only his company is trained up in the QAs already, but also when he's working outside of it, that he's sharing and building that knowledge.
So I guess let's jump right into that. Hello, Mikko.
Hello, thank you for joining us today.
Hello, hello. Am I audible?
Visible? You are audible.
Yes,
We can hear you perfectly.
Excellent.
Fantastic. You can go ahead. We'll give you the floor to start your presentation. Thank you for joining us. 2 decades of experience. You know what you're talking about. So
we are ready to listen.
We're ready.
Fantastic. All right. Let's talk about quality assurance and compliance, my favorite topics. But maybe first a few words about myself. Yeah, so my name is Mikko Paloheimo, expert QA lead and chapter lead, and recently also appointed as headmaster of OP Tech Academy in Finland. I work in OP Pohjola, previously known as OP Financial Group, in the Development and Technologies Department, which is our ICT department. I do love quality assurance and testing, and I'm passionate about QA competence development, coaching, training, and QA communities. I'm also very much involved in organization level QA guidelines and practices development, also regulatory compliance testing guidelines and things like that. And I even do QA communities as a voluntary after work hobby, but maybe that's enough about me. So let's start with the actual content now. So what are the foundations of resilient quality assurance? I will talk about governance and ways to bring these guidelines into workable practices. So let's go to the next. Yeah, thank you. In finance industry, trust is not optional. It is the foundation of everything that we do. Legislation and regulations, those set the rules that we must follow. Corporate ICT governance, on the other hand, creates the framework, the model that is clear and understandable for organizations and all of its different departments and functions, business and technology alike. Quality assurance then makes sure that the framework, the rules, and the guidelines are actually met in our systems and processes. The idea I would like you to realize is that the goal is not to treat compliance and related framework, guidelines, and rules as extra work, but to see it as belonging, as part of normal development. And when governance, engineering practices, resilience testing, and release checks, when these work together, the regulatory compliance actually, it happens automatically. This way, regulations stop feeling like a burden. They become part of the flow, something that supports quality and reduce risk. The main point here being to see regulation as a tool, not an enemy. And if you think about it, regulations actually give us the structure. They help us build processes That can avoid surprises and build trust with customers. Let's go to the next slide then. Compliance works best when it's part of every step in development, not something added at the end, but integrated into every phase of software development lifecycle. It starts with governance, the rules and limits we need to follow. Then the engineering practices guidelines or handbooks turn these rules into practical ways of working for developing teams. These are, for example, coding conventions, quality assurance and testing strategies and plans, and many, many other guidelines for teams to use as a backbone, something that they can lean on and base their operations on. Resilience testing programs, on the other hand, they tell us what needs to be tested to make sure that problems can be prevented or that systems can handle problems if they occur. It is about avoiding risks and doing correct things in correct schedule. Resilience testing programs are much more wide in comparison to traditional software testing strategies, as they include other important areas too. Finally, implementing, for example, common release checks gives proof that everything is done right. Common release checks, in this context, and in our case, mean mandatory requirements that teams need to meet before releasing. By using this kind of setup, it means that every release is controlled, tested, and documented. Of course, it also supports the teamwork. Developers, testers, product owners, and other roles in the teams all share responsibility for quality and regulatory compliance. No strict role borders, just shared goals. Eventually, quality becomes part of normal agile work we do every day, being embedded in team practices and helped by clear instructions and automation. Then, let's go to the next slide and let's talk about some practical points in regulatory compliance. Let us talk about common release controls and test data and environments. Let's start with that. So, release controls. These are simple checks that make sure that every release meets quality and compliance needs. These checks include things like acceptance and end-to-end tests, performance and failover timeout tests, accessibility checks, and security audit references. These controls can be built into the release process and the tools that are supporting it. There is no way to go around these controls, but they need to be assessed every time in release. Of course, the team and the owner has the responsibility to evaluate the need for controls implementation scope. For example, it might be a good practice to execute full-scale testing activities, including security, performance, etc., if the release contains only updates that have been evaluated as trivial level. But on the other hand, these controls, they work as a checklist. Nothing will be forgotten, as the reminders are always there to be taken into account. Every change has to be documented, so we have traceability and proof if somebody is coming and asking about it later. Be it then actual release content, specifications, test reports, visuals, all the relevant content has to be easily includable to the final documentation. And of course, in the documentation, it helps a lot if the common test report format exists, because it makes easier for teams and stakeholders to understand them. There is benefit in transparency and visibility. Common test report format does not mean that teams would need to write many page-long test report documents, but these can be, for example, templates, issues in the tool that automatically can be updated to contain test results and necessary evidence. The idea here again that compliance is not something extra at the end. It is built into the release process and to the development process preceding the release. And when these controls are part of the workflow, we keep quality and meet regulations without slowing down development. And quality is built into the process. Let's go to the next slide. It's about test data. Effective test data management, including the whole test data lifecycle from requirement to ramp down, is crucial for regulatory compliance and comprehensive testing. The general best practice is always to avoid using raw production data in lower environments, in fact, using it anywhere. Instead, teams should use synthetic or sanitized data, documenting any needed exceptions and reasons very carefully. Service virtualization and API mocking help simulate complex dependencies, enabling robust testing even when components are unavailable in the software development processes' earlier stages. Environments, development, acceptance, or pre-production, these must be audit-ready with controlled access, logging, and traceability. And these principles, they ensure that testing is both secure and also effective. Of course, while exceptions may exist, they must be justified, documented, and managed according to the organization governance policies. This balanced approach supports compliance while maintaining flexibility in the testing practices. Then let's move on. And let us talk a bit more about operational resilience testing, that is Digital Operation Resilience Act aligned, communication and enablement playbook or some practices there, and finally about the quality assurance community and its structures and functions that support regulatory compliance. Let's move here. Operational resilience testing program, that is an example of structured program which is designed to meet the requirements of the Digital Operation Resilience Act, DORA, which is relevant in financial industry. It includes 4 key pillars. The Digital Operation Resilience Testing Policy for software testing, or what we commonly see as the traditional testing, focusing in testing for continuous delivery. Also, it contains information security audits, instructions for security audits to be executed and implemented at risk-based intervals. Infrastructure and platform capabilities and recovery drills are also relevant, as well as business continuity and disaster recovery testing. This model, these 4 pillars, ensure that guidelines and instructions for the critical systems, they are regularly tested and documented as the regulations require. Ownership and also responsibilities are clearly defined, and testing frequency is aligned with the regulatory expectations. Instructions are easily found by those different roles requiring different type of testing information. For example, people responsible for infrastructure capabilities, they are interested in different aspects of resilience testing than, for example, developing team product owners might be interested in. By adopting this kind of framework for testing principles and guidelines, organizations can proactively manage risks and demonstrate resilience. Trust, of course, is very important between the company and its customers and stakeholders, but also internal trust. That is also very, very important and not to be overlooked. Let's talk about communication next. So, effective communication and enablement are also very essential for successful implementation of compliance programs. For example, a 2-phase communication strategy starting with flagship event followed by smaller localized sessions. This would ensure a broad awareness and engagement. Key components here include identifying the correct audiences, selecting appropriate channels for communication, establishing cadence for sessions, empowering different champions, providing training, and creating feedback loops. Materials such as decks, one-pagers, or frequently asked question lists and recordings, These all support consistent messaging that is aligned with identified audiences. Tracking questions and follow-up centrally helps also refine the approach if there is something that needs fine-tuning. This playbook offers an example of effective digital operation resilience testing communication plan, and I would say it's a reusable template for any other organization. It ensures that all roles, from individual contributors to department leads, they understand the regulations and their impact in their responsibility areas and daily work. Next, about quality assurance communities. A strong quality assurance community is one of the best ways to keep compliance and quality alive in daily work. First, of course, it's important to have an open door policy. Anyone interested in quality should feel welcome to join, learn, and understand, no matter what their role or background is. We want to bring together people from different teams and areas so we can learn from each other and share good practices. This is not just for testers, but also for developers, product owners, solution analysts, and anyone involved in software development. There are, in my opinion, three main things that make a QA community work. Those are communication, training, and coaching. Communication means sharing updates, new things, news, lessons learned, and even mistakes, so everyone can improve. Communication has to be planned and done in a way that crosses department boundaries and goes from grassroots level to the management levels equally. Training, on the other hand, it keeps our skills up to date, especially as tools and regulations change. I bet all our organizations have varied level of experts, and I would say it is a wise practice to involve the most senior experts in training the others. It is them, after all, who know best the ways, the practices, and all the good tips and tricks the best. Coaching is about helping each other solve problems and grow as professionals. It can be one-to-one mentoring or maybe a team coaching. And as always, it is never a one-way street. Mentees and mentors alike both learn in the process. Regular assessments, on the other hand, they are also important because they help us see if our guidelines, practices, and tools are still aligned with the business goals and compliance needs. It is a way to implement continuous learning and staying up to date to the fast-changing technology landscape. When the community is active and everyone is aware of the guidelines, compliance becomes a natural part of the way we work, not something extra or something that's forced. The more we talk about quality and compliance, the more it becomes part of our everyday thinking. That's how we can make sure that we are always ready for new challenges and changes in the regulation. And we are slowly reaching the closing part. Let's go to the next slide. Yeah, and with the conclusion and call to action, maybe wishing you would realize and value the fact that regulation is a friend. Okay, let's move on. So, regulations, they should not be viewed as obstacles, but as frameworks that enable organized and effective quality assurance. They reduce unknown risks and provide clear expectations for software development and testing. The key message here is that we do not choose whether to comply, we choose how smoothly we comply. A practical blueprint would include defining governance framework, documenting engineering handbook guidelines for all areas of software development, implementing effective and clear testing programs, and communicating clearly. All of this to the selected and focused audiences. By embracing regulations, organizations can enhance quality, reduce risk, and deliver better outcomes for stakeholders and customers. After all, I think we can conclude that regulation is a friend. So that was it. And if we move to the next slide, the last slide, it's all about thank you then. And there is also my QR code if you want to follow me and my exploits in LinkedIn. So feel free to connect with me. And if there are any comments or questions, feel free to shoot them. I'm ready for that.
Thank you, Mikko, very much for your presentation. We're feeling very lucky to have this sneak peek into the QA in the financial industry. And I like how much focus you're putting into the building of the QA community. And I absolutely agree with that. We do have some questions for you, and I would like to jump right into that. And the first question from our side would be, what are the unique traits that makes QA in the finance industry stand out?
Well, yeah, in the finance industry, there are a lot of regulations to take into account. But on the other hand, QA is crucial part of the organization's strengths, supporting the complete ICT development, and of course the business of the company as well. I feel that quality as well as security, hand in hand, they provide the basis for trust, which is essential in succeeding in finance industry.
Another question from us, that was a good one, is how do you balance automation and manual testing in such a sensitive industry? Because the finance industry, there are a lot of things to manage the quality of. It's not just one app. There's the website, there's the background features, there's everything. So how do you balance what's automated and what's done manually?
Very, very good question. It would blow your mind if I would tell you how many services and applications we have under test on a daily basis. It's a four-figure. But anyway, I would say it is exactly a matter of finding the correct balance that fits the purpose of the team. Correctly assessed and created test automation, it helps with repetitive tasks and checking. But on the other hand, manual testing adds value as testers are able and have more time to explore and learn about the system under test and use their skills and intuition to the full value. That's something, intuition, it's very difficult to build into test automation, but experienced tester, those guys have it, and of course girls as well, but maybe that's my answer to the question.
Fantastic. 4K, over 4K development, that's a lot.
I would like to jump on the next question because it's especially interesting for me. You have been a part of testing industry for nearly 2 decades, and your current work focuses on QA culture, competence development, and skill sharing and training. So from your perspective, how is AI changing the game in QA?
This is a very good question. It was actually just a day before we discussed this matter in our QA meetup here in Finland, in Helsinki. Somebody was saying that, okay, 15 years test automation came into play and said that, okay, testers are not needed anymore. It's a bit same about about AI, but anyway, it is here. There is no sense in hiding your head in a bush. So I feel that artificial intelligence can be utilized to help with many tasks, but there are still areas that need more consideration, like testing the AI application themselves. On the other hand, I see AI in the IT industry as something that makes us, the testers, still valid for a long time coming, as the development work, well, it creates huge amounts of codes and applications, well, that might not be as carefully code reviewed as before AI came into play. So I feel there's going to be plenty to test when we report the real status, the quality of the software produced by AI. That's my take.
Nice. That was a good one. And another question, and this is a wordier one, but you are a QA and chapter lead, and part of that role means ensuring the development and keeping the QA engineers you work with, both at the office and at the testing events you host, up to scratch on a really rapidly changing environment, as we just mentioned with AI. So what does competence development mean to you, and what are some of the most important things to get right when you're developing these next generation of QA engineers?
Well, this is something that I do a lot in my daily work, competence development, training and coaching. I think that keeping skills and practices up to date is one of the most important things modern companies should support and treasure. For example, we offer an internal technology learning platform, OP Tech Academy, for our employees, providing courses in data, AI, DevOps, design, security, and of course, quality assurance. This hugely successful initiative since 2019, well, for example, this autumn semester is having 620 registrations for different
wow.
technology courses. So keeping those skills up to date constantly, I think that's very important. You cannot underline that too much.
Fantastic. I know our team over here will also appreciate the message to businesses is treasure your QA teams, look after them because of how important they are. So that will resonate both with our audience and with our employees here at TestDevLab. So thank you for that. That is all the time. We have time for questions today, but thank you so much for joining this. It was a fantastic presentation. There was so much data there and so much we can learn from all your decades of experience. And I'm impressed at how you got it in that presentation. So thank you once again.
Thank you very much.
And
Thank you
for
very much
being
for
with us.
hosting. It was very nice to be here. Thank you, Joss, and
Thank you so
Pauliina.
much.
Thank you, Mikko.